Happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody. So, I want to start off with a couple things. Obviously, we changed to Sundays. If you are watching, then you got the message. Um, Saturdays just weren't working out all that great. It always seemed like I had to cut my Saturday plan short to do this, and everybody else was out having a life, having a good old time. So I decided it might just be easier to do it on Sundays. So here we are today. Let's see, what have I done new? I actually took a break. Kind of took a week off of doing any major social media posts and stuff like that. I did get a new tool. I got a green screen to help with editing and doing more visual effects in my upcoming videos. So that's another reason why I haven't done a new video, like a full length video that I would normally do. The office got kind of crowded and it was kind of hard to shoot in here without having somebody else's stuff in the view. So I decided to get a green screen and just kind of do this in the background. If you haven't noticed, this is a lot cleaner too. It's not all flexing and stuff. So those are some new changes that have occurred. Hang on. My chat doc. This is going to be a good one. Deck says pros and cons. Oh, pros and cons. Oops. Guess I was typing too fast. Blaster. Blaster bomb. Thanks for joining the chat. Um, so today we're talking about the actual smart home automations. We've talked about kind of sensors the last time or the time before that. And we talked about smart lighting. This is actually going to be like the brains of everything. Where you do your smart home automations, what makes those sensors work with those lights and stuff like that. I use three different ecosystems. I really don't use Smartthings because Home Assistant does everything, but Smartthings is a great ecosystem to do automations in. But let's get started. So as you see up on the screen, I've got, this is Alexa being broadcast from my tablet. Oh, it hears me. Announcing. No, don't care. From my tablet? I'm going to refrain from saying that name and I will just say Amazon Echo. So this is the Amazon app. To get here to do routines, you'll first start out by, well, of course, opening it, and then you'll go to more. Then you'll hit routines. They've changed it a lot. It used to be you would automatically go into routines, but not so much more anyway. Not so much more now. Now it has all this extra stuff. So I guess if you want to do specific categories based on health, wellness, family, but this is where you mainly want to go to do things for your home. So we'll start there. These are my routines, but we'll want to click new so I can kind of go into the pros and cons, or the pros and cons, as I wrote like a dummy. But hey, I think I wrote that description in a rush. So on a new routine, the first thing you're going to do is when an event happens. Those events can be a lot of different things. This is kind of what separates and why I use the Amazon routines still, as opposed to just doing everything in Home Assistant, because there are a couple of things that we can see that we can do that not necessarily I can do yet in Home Assistant. So you can do specific voice phrases. So let's say, a lot of people I've seen on TikTok do the intruder alert. So this is where you would do intruder alert. So if I set that as the event, what that will actually cause is as a trigger when I say to my Echo, intruder alert, that triggers, what it will do. So it's basically when Alexa or Amazon Echo will knock it off.
This might answer your question. The Amazon Echo Spot is compatible with Zero.
Not what I asked for. So you go to add action, and so I can do a lot of cool things. Most people would probably do this. Smart home. We can pick our devices in here. So you can have scenes, your groups, but we want to, let's just say lights. Let's say you got your first bulb. You have your Amazon Echo, and then you have your smart Wi-Fi bulb. You'll pick whatever Wi-Fi bulb. So let's pick the accent light. Then we'll go next. From here, you can do if it allows on Amazon, you can do a lot of different things. So I mean, obviously you have to power it on or off. You can change its brightness. Let's say for the intruder alert, you want to hit red lights, but at not ultra brightness. So you want to take it down to like 15%. You can also ramp brightness too. So like when it comes on, it slowly goes to that. It goes from 0 to whatever you set it to. And these two options, you can brighten it up by this, you can brighten it up by that, and you can set the color. Cool. Pretty simple. So, I mean, obviously it doesn't have red. It has goofy, whatever Amazon decided it would be. Cool. I don't probably spelled intruder wrong, but so that's how we did it. Now we'll go back into that one. Oh, these are suggestions. They kind of changed this on me. Okay. If you want to see your routines, you click your routines, and we'll go back into this one. This is going to be kind of our framework. I'll delete it at the end of the day because I'm not going to use it. Well, cool. We got it to do the red light now, right? Let's say we wanted to get our echoes to actually say something. Well, how would you do that? Add another action. And then you can just say right here. You can do all these preset things. So it's kind of cool. I used to do the good morning phase, and she'll give you like the news, the time, maybe a joke, depends on what the day is. She can sing you a song. A lot of cool things you can program Amazon Echo to do. Um, Most of the time, you're going to customize it. So, I mean, you'd want to do what? Red alert. Say red alert. There, she's going to say red alert, engage all defense systems. And that's in that customized thing. Now you're going to have to pick which one it says it from. Don't forget to do that, otherwise this is not going to work. So we'll do, I don't know, office. There. Okay. Let's say we want to get her to make a sound. I mean, we can get her to play music too. So like I had my original intruder alert one would be, hey, you know, Amazon Echo, intruder alert. She lock all the doors, turn the lights red, and play music from Doom. You know that really fast pace. I think it was Rip and Tear the song. And it was really cool. You're never gonna use this. It's just for show. Um, but you would do. I don't know. You could do. I think they have the Star Trek siren. Yeah, there it is, right there. The red alert. And finish. So if I wanted to test this out, I would hit the play button. Oh, well, you know what? Let's do it.
Red alert. Engage all defense systems.
There you go. Um, so the pros of using just the routines are it can do a lot of things that other systems can't. It can use a lot of different weird triggers um, that other systems can't. So like if you want to do a very specific, like using your voice, think about it like that. If you want to do a routine based off your voice, Amazon Echoes are the best to do that in. If you want to trigger certain Amazon products to do certain things, they're the best to do that in. I'm probably gonna get in the comments a lot of Home Assistant users that you can do all this in Home Assistant. Yes, you probably can. They are coming out. They have their own voice assistant and all that stuff. And Home Assistant is phenomenal and great, but some things take time to figure out in there. And my channel is more catered to the everyman and not the techie nerd. Um, so I want to show people how to do it the easiest way possible and I guess the most stable way, because a lot of things you can do with like chaining automations through all kinds of different crazy stuff. Like I can make Home Assistant tell Alexa and make and trigger Alexa routines through an automation in Home Assistant. Oh, here we go again because for whatever reason it keeps popping up. You can I can make Home Assistant trigger Amazon routines through booleans, and there's a service called Voice Monkey. But then you're chaining things, and if you're trying to troubleshoot it, there's so many different places that could go wrong. So it's best to like plan yours out and see how you can easily do it, and the least complicated way of doing it. If that doesn't include Home Assistant, then it doesn't. Um, the Alexa stuff, it can do a lot of stuff. I mean, you can get delivery. There we go. You can get the delivery updates um, for your packages as an automation or a routine, as they call it. You can do things with your Fire TVs. So I have three, and if I say, "Hey, Amazon Echo, turn on Netflix," it can, or turn on my show. Let's just say my show. It can then trigger the Fire TV to navigate or automatically open up Netflix and play whatever show I was watching. You can do a lot of unique things that you can't do in a lot of other systems in here. So that is the Amazon routines. Um, Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Those are the pros of it. Now the cons, I think I've expressed this in other videos and in my long-term video or my longer, smart home ecosystem video. I expressed this. It's hard to use sensors as triggers in Alexa routines or Amazon routines. Yeah, 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 yeah. I'm gonna mute you. Hang on. It is hard to use motion sensors for triggers in Amazon routines because you can easily get things to turn on. But if I want to, like, let's say I don't want my bathroom turning off as soon as it doesn't detect motion because maybe you're going to the restroom and you're sitting there and not moving much. So it will trigger off automatically, and then you're sitting in the dark and you have to wave your arms and do all this junk. And that can be annoying and frustrating. We don't want our routines, our automations to frustrate us or to be an inconvenience in any way. We want to set them up to where they work the best for the purpose we want them to. So let's say I want the bathroom light to stay on while there's motion detected. I would use a if motion's detected, turn on light, and then I would set up another automation or routine that if motion's not detected after a period of time, say 5-10 minutes, then turn off light. So in the Amazon routines, you can't necessarily do that when pairing your sensors directly to it because it will just go offline. In my experience, I don't. Maybe Wi-Fi motion sensors will work better, but I don't like a whole bunch of Wi-Fi stuff on my network because it tends to slow down my stream speeds and just bandwidth in general. So yeah, the best thing to do is to actually do your sensors through a different service and link it in skills, and that's a whole different thing. I'll show you guys eventually how to do that. Skills are pretty easy. Usually, you just sign into whatever account you've created for, like, Tuya. You would sign into the account for that, and it would link it, and it's pretty straightforward. It's not hard to do. But those are the cons. Sometimes, oh, and like toggling lights on and off. So, like, let's say I have a button. So Flick works directly with the Amazon routines, and I have a button I want to hit. I want one action to toggle a light on or off. It makes sense. So I want to press it once, it will turn it on. And if I press it once again, it should turn it off. You can't do that. It won't toggle. They don't have a toggle function in the Amazon routines, which is frustrating because then you got to, Flick buttons are not cheap. They're like $30 a button, and then you have to waste two actions to essentially do one thing. Smartthings and Home Assistant both have the option to toggle a light on or off or a device on or off. So that's pretty cool. There's a few downsides, like I said, to using Amazon routines as opposed to other ecosystems, but there's also some pluses. Like I said, you can do some pretty unique stuff that you can't do in other systems or other systems easily. Like you can probably do it in Home Assistant. It's going to take a long time or a lot of effort to get it to do what you want it to do. So like it takes some time to set up the ability to have Home Assistant basically talk through Amazon Echoes. There's some custom integrations that you have to find and then install via. So you have to install what's called the Home Assistant Community Store through some SSH commands. Install that, then you have to go through download Alexa Media Player, and then through Alexa Media Player, you have to figure out how to script it right. I'll show you actually in a little bit what it looks like. Once you get it down, once you get used to it, it's easy. But figuring out the first time and actually putting the effort or the time and effort into it can be a little bit difficult. So there's that. Um, so let's move on to the next one. That's Home Assistant. We're not jumping into that just yet. I wanted to talk about Smartthings and how pretty similar it is to Home Assistant, with the exception that Smartthings doesn't integrate with everything. In all fairness, doesn't neither does Home Assistant organically, but all right, we'll blow this up. Very similar. You have your favorites, your devices. I really like the Home Assistant dashboard. It's pretty slick. It can tell you. I have 3 devices that are low battery that I probably need to replace. Why is that low battery now? Just changed them not too long ago. Well, that's a lie. They're online. Anyway, but you want to go to routines. They're also called routines and Smartthings. So you can see I have 2 already, but let's see what making another one looks like. And if I'm going too fast or anybody has any questions about either one of the things, just stop and ask the question. There'll be a delay. I think it's like 30 seconds, but just let me know if there's more you would like to discuss or see. So, Smartthings routines are basically if this, then that. Pretty simple. So, add a trigger. What trigger do I want? You can do a lot of different things. You can do device status, which is what you're mostly going to do. Location mode. Smartthings has this modes and routines thing that you can do with your phone that will create kind of these side routines. But you can do so like the S Pen, you can do certain motions with it or certain waves or double clicks or. I haven't really messed with it to be honest, but I've watched videos and it looks pretty cool. Um, but you can do time and device status, which is mainly like before you start getting into the advanced automations. Most people are going to do this stuff. I want my lights to turn on at 8 o'clock. So, we'll set it for 8 o'clock. And this is for a mobile app. So that's why it looks goofy. So at 8 o'clock, I want something to do something. There we go. And you know what? It's not going to repeat every day. I wanted this to do on weekdays. Done. We can add a condition. So is this Windows app or a web page? So this is the app. I didn't really explain that. So I'm actually using the Windows Phone Link app to show on my tablet because there's not really a good Windows app for Smartthings or the Amazon routines. They're really mobile based, so I'm using the Windows thing to actually show you um, on my computer what the mobile app looks like. If that answers your question. So right now, if you missed the whole Amazon thing, we're on Smart Things now, Black Diamond, and I'm going through like kind of like the first routine creation. So we're doing a time based automation. What is this? No, we're doing a time based automation, which is pretty simple. And we'll just pick control a device. We can also notify somebody. That's kind of cool. So we'll pick accent light again because accent light can do colors. So that's that toggle, turn on or off. It doesn't say toggle, but that's what it is. It's you can turn on or off. So if you have a Smart Things button or a Nakara button because it integrates with that, there's a lot of different buttons that integrate with Smart Things. But we'll just go. We'll turn it on. We don't want to dim it. Let's do the color, and then we create from or pick a color from this gradient, which I don't really like this. I'd rather have like a definitive selection. I mean, I guess it gives you more options to various different colors, but I find it kind of annoying. You can do the circadian lighting, so it automatically adjusts it to the temperature of the day. That's actually new. When I got on Smart Things about 3 years ago, didn't have that option. Um, the only way I could achieve this was through an integration Home Assistant that automatically did it, and I still use it to this day. You can delay this action, so I mean we can delay it by whatever we want, or we can auto turn off after a certain time. So let's say we're doing like an indication automation. That's where you would use that. Like you don't want the light to stay permanently on. You want it to turn off after a certain time. In Home Assistant, you would just script that. Say wait X amount of time. Ooh, I'll show you. But that's pretty simple. At 8 o'clock, we're going to turn this a set accent light on and set it to red. We can do more actions just like we can do in you know um, the Amazon routines. Let's say I want to notify somebody. Send a notification to member. It's 8 p.m. Say a specific member, which would be me. If you see that email and you try emailing it, I generally just delete all emails out of there. It's one of my throwaways. We're gonna have it email me there, or send me a notification to me. I'm the only member. If you add more family members to your Amazon or your not your Amazon, your Smart Things, then you can pick which one, but not necessarily. And then here's where you would test the routine's actions. Let's say we wanted to do when a device status changed. So let's pick the different. And so every device has different options depending on what type it is. So like this is a motion sensor, this is a contact sensor, and that's a TV. Let's pick a SmartThings motion sensor or contact sensor. Their contact sensors are actually multi sensors, kind of like how I talked about in I think the last live stream when I was talking about sensors. So we can pick the different options that it has available. So let's say we want to do that when the door opens. Um, okay, and use a precondition. Let's not do that. So when this door opens, and actually this is probably one of the first routines I had before. This is before we had the baby, but let's say after 8:26. So if this door opens, am I reading that right? So if this door opens after 8:26 every day, it will turn the exit light red in the hallway. Basically, give us an indication that our daughter is out of her room when she should not be. Um, and we can do other actions. This was actually easier to set in the Amazon routines to do something specifically like this because I'm questioning, honestly, the way in my head this should work is if it is this way. They kind of changed. This is how long it's been since I've done automations in Smartthings, but the way it used to work is you would have an if, a condition, and then a then. So if this happens and it meets this condition, oh, that's what that was. Okay. They changed how it does as a precondition. There we go. But it's not going to let me. Okay. And what will trigger this routine? Time. There we go. That's how they do it now. Okay. So we're learning together. So if it's 8:27 and that door opens, it will then turn on that light. Um, One of my original automations in, I think I just did it, like I said, through Amazon routines, was if my daughter opened up her room after bedtime, the light would turn red. I only had one smart bulb, and it was in the hallway. It would turn red, and then my Amazon Echo would go, you know, the monster has escaped from its room, basically, just as a joke. But this is actually easier, or you can get more functionality in Amazon if you want to do voice added to it. That's just an example of doing stuff like that. So the toggle function that works really well in device status, and that would be, where's it? Button. Wow. So I don't really know if these work. The press two times. I haven't tried it. I don't think it works that well. I know it's just these three. So you got to press, double press, and hold. So let's say I wanted to hold, and we'll do control device, and then we'll control that light, and then we just set it to toggle, turn off or on. So if I hold it, it's gonna turn that light on. If I hold it again, if I let up on it and hold it again, it will turn that light off. That's the toggle function that's missing from Amazon routines, which I think they should figure that out and make that work, because then honestly they fix a lot of things. It would just be better just to have everything go into Amazon routines, unless you want everything locally controlled. But that's Smartthings. Kind of had to do a bit of relearn on it. The pros of using it, you can do more specific things. You can add more conditions. It has toggle. Um, More useful, I guess that's the best way. The Amazon stuff, you can do a lot of different stuff, but as far as usefulness, if I'm being honest, I haven't found many of the gimmicky stuff useful, and that's really what it is. It's just gimmicky. The Smartthings ecosystem, the automations you'll be creating in here can be a little bit more advanced, can have more conditions than more advanced for useful automations or routines, as they call them. There's a couple of things, other things that I haven't showed, but again, we're gonna get in the basic stuff. I'll show you some crazy stuff you can do in Home Assistant in a little bit, but anybody have any questions on Smartthings? I absolutely love Smartthings as a hub. I don't really use their routines because I use Home Assistant and it's basically just this on steroids. Um, so yeah, that's Smartthings. They do have, because the hub is got a Z-Wave and Zigbee radio in it. It integrates with a lot of stuff. Not only does it integrate with some Wi-Fi stuff, so like your Tuya devices, through the Tuya app. So it basically does what Amazon does, is it links and then it brings up all those things into Smartthings. But then you can directly add devices. That's not what I want to do. Go back. We're gonna go to devices. Hit add device. We'll look at the partners. So of course the Samsung devices, your smart washers, dryers, their hub, which isn't made by them, like I said in a video. I said it's actually made by AOTech. now, but you know, we can look at the partner devices. Matter, which still disappointed on. Smartthings, so AOTech Smartthings, and then the list goes on forever. Now, a lot of things work with Amazon, but not the Zigbee Z-Wave. Well, Zigbee does now if you have a Gen 4 hub, the big round ball. It has a built-in Zigbee antenna, but that leads to that problem that when you put sensors on it, they don't work right. Zigbee likes to go to sleep to save battery life, and Amazon routines just look at it as offline, and so that kind of get causes that issue where if you have something, if it doesn't detect motion for more than 5 to 10 minutes, turn off the light. It'll just not do it because it's offline. That's how it detects it. So that would be smart things in a nutshell. Now my favorite, Home Assistant. So if you haven't watched my video, Home Assistant is basically something you can put on. I have mine on a Raspberry Pi. People have do Dockers, a Docker container, which is basically a virtual machine. People have done virtual machines. I've actually had mine as a virtual machine in Oracle VirtualBox before, just living on my system because I didn't have the dedicated Raspberry Pi at the time. Um, you can take an old computer, install Ubuntu onto it, and install the Home Assistant software on it and have it that way. There's a lot of different ways to install Home Assistant. There's a lot of different videos out there to show you how to do it. I put mine directly on a Raspberry Pi just because I feel it works better that way for me. I don't like the hassle with going to a virtual machine and then trying to make it see a USB. And that's probably my fault because I use Oracle Box and not like something like VMware, which I have used VMware Workstation before and it works significantly better with stuff like that. But I had the Raspberry Pi, so I did it and I used it and I love it. But regardless of your preference on how you want to do it, Home Assistant is very accessible. If you got an old computer sitting around, I recommend just throwing Ubuntu on there or Ubuntu or however it's said, and installing the Home Assistant application on it. And from there, you'll be able to access it through just an IP URL. So, Home Assistant automations are fun. They don't. I think this is a con that I did not mention. So in Amazon routines, there are certain things you just can't use as triggers. I had an old PC that I just formatted for Ha. It's a super Ha system. Ha ha ha. Yeah, Home Assistant. Anyway, yeah, I mean that's always great. People have had so Tim, I've assumed that it's working bare metal. It's not a VM because I know people have had issues with putting Home Assistant bare metal on a PC. Um, I've done it in the past. Home Assistant is always updating and changing the way you can do things. So you need an additional PC/device to get Home Assistant set up. No, Home Assistant can be a virtual machine or an old. Yeah. All right. I'm gonna address Black Diamond's question. Home Assistant is a can be a virtual machine. You can install it on it. It's a separate device. The reason why this is better in some cases is because you can put it on an old PC, a Raspberry Pi. You can build your own Home Assistant. I think you can put it on some NASs. Um, it's more versatile as opposed to you having to go out and buy. I think when I bought the Smartthings hub, it was like $150. I don't want if I've got a spare PC sitting around, which I always do. I'd rather utilize that than have to go buy somebody's branded device that could very well be shut off one day, as we've seen with Philips Hue because they're trash. Logitech's Harmony Hub, they just shut down that whole thing at one point. Um, SmartThings did it to their V1 hub. They just shut it down. With Home Assistant, it really doesn't matter. Let's say if you're doing backups and that device fails, you just get a new device and restore from backup. Matter of fact, when I migrated from a virtual machine to a hard machine. I didn't have to build it from the ground up. I just installed Home Assistant and then restored from backup, and boom, it was done. I didn't have to reinstall all my integrations and redo all my stuff. So I just feel like Home Assistant's a lot more versatile because of that fact. So I mean, I probably went in a lot more detail than just a simple yes or no to your. You don't need an additional PC or device. I'm running three different ecosystems. If to clarify, so you can just run Home Assistant, you can just run Smartthings, and you can just run Amazon. Um, because Home Assistant has its own voice assistant, you'd have to buy the devices and flash firmware. It's more of a techie solution, but it's local as opposed to Amazon. I'm got all these systems working together. If that clarifies anything for you, so yes, it's an additional PC slash device, but it's its own thing that you don't need anything else for. These are all three separate things that can work on their own. I'm just in my ecosystem. I have them all working. If that clarifies anything for everybody. I have an old PC just sitting there collecting dust. Not much experience with Ubuntu. It's pretty simple. If you've ever seen a Mac layout, the new Ubuntu is pretty close to that. Or like Tim did, he just straight up installed Home Assistant on the device itself. So apparently that's working again. I've had people not have great success with that, but you can do that too if you want to try it out. Or you can just spin up a Windows machine with VirtualBox and spin up a virtual version of Home Assistant. Home Assistant is pretty lightweight. It's headless, but you can access a graphical user interface through a web browser. That's actually what I'm on right here. This is a web browser that I'm accessing my Home Assistant. Yeah, Home Assistant itself, like their page has a great guide on how to set up all that stuff. So let's look at Home Assistant automations and the insane stuff you can do with them. So they've changed this a lot and have made it way user friendly. I don't know if I showed you here. Let's leave. I'll start from the very beginning. So when you create a new automation, it used to just go right into the automation screen, but now they have, you know, different installations that you've done, and they have building blocks and easier ways of doing things now. So like, what do I want as my trigger? Time and location, an entity. So to explain devices and entities real quick before we get into this, a device is the Smartthings contact sensor, right? That's a device. Within that device, it has multiple entities. It has a contact entity, it has a temperature entity, it has a battery entity, and it has, I think, the accelerometer entity. So the device is what contains the entities, if that makes sense. If you want to make a specific thing on one of the entities, that's fine, but it's just easier to do devices and then pick the option. So let's get into that. So we're gonna pick a device. What's cool is you can use lights as triggers. Um, I don't really know if Smartthings you can do that. I know for sure in Amazon you cannot. So if I have another automation doing something with a light, or if there's a manual way to turn on that light and I want something to happen when that light turns on, or I want a different automation to kick off at a certain time with that light, we can pick lights. It's there. Nothing can. Everything can be a trigger in Home Assistant, whereas the other systems it can't. And so, oh, you know what? I did this the other day. So this is how I'll walk you guys through how I did the. If you've watched my TikTok, YouTube short automation where Alexa basically goes HAL 9000 on me. This is kind of how I did it. So I actually used the front door lock. So I did an automation. Yeah, so when it's jammed, um, it has so many more options in Home Assistant for triggers and just even actions. Um, So I did basically when the front door is unlocked, then do this. So device, you're gonna type in front. I had it actually lock the front door. So lock front door. And then I had service call. So you can do things like this if you want to do a group in Home Assistant. In Smartthings and in Amazon, you have to go through and select each individual device to do this. Um, Home Assistant has a faster way of doing it after you get used to it. Calling services for actions is way better than going in and manually setting each device. So I just typed in call service and then I hit lights colon turn on. So it's going, this action is going to turn on lights and I can choose an area. I can choose a device or I can choose entities. If you create a group in Home Assistant, it's called a helper, and that's an entity. You cannot access that as a device. It becomes an entity in Home Assistant. So, um, office lights, or and I can choose my office Govee lights because that's a different one too. So these are two different groups that contain all the lights in my office. Instead of me having to go in and get each individual light, because I think there's 9 different devices, this makes it a lot faster. So I can then set their color to red because that's what I did. And then the next action was it was another service. This was a service call. This is how I do the um, Amazon if I can spell notification. So we are going to pick the Office Echo. And so this is where you have to set what kind of data set it is. So it's going to be a type TTS, which stands for text to speech, and this is where you write the message. I cannot allow you. If I could spell, maybe we'll get that down. Allow you to go outside. Conditions are not conducive to human life. All right, that's how I did that. This is basically automation here. You can't do this in the other two systems. It's pretty in depth. I mean, you could probably kick it off. You could do it in an Amazon routine because you can make the echoes talk in Amazon routines, but you couldn't use the front door lock as a trigger. You would have to do something like time, or you would have to initiate the talk, but then that's just pointless. I mean, for the point of the video, I was trying to create a, dystopian nightmare situation. I didn't want to have to go, ooh, a word, do this, and then start recording or whatever. I wanted to just simply unlock a lock and then it kick off that automation. And this is literally how I did it. And it turned all the lights in my office red, and then she started talking, and she locked the door again to not let me out. Um, there's a lot of crazy stuff. And then if I wanted to, so these are your conditions. Let's say it's a certain time, the sun's in a certain position, or someone or a device is home. So entity with location. My remote has a tracker in it. Okay. And then I have my different locations. So that's how you do that. So yeah, that's automations. Um, I can go in a lot more detail with Home Assistant, but there's a lot of things you have to put in place first before you get to kind of this level. This has been 3 years of tinkering and installing integrations and working through some stuff. Like I recently learned that the Govee to MQTT integration works way better than the actual like Govee integration. I think I mentioned that before. The Govee integration has a timeout of how many requests the device, the basically the Govee servers can receive. But using the protocol MQTT, which I don't have any idea how that works, but I know it works great. Um, Using that add-on controls them, I think, pretty much locally. It's a lot more responsive. It doesn't have to jump to a cloud. It doesn't have to wait. It doesn't have to pull or do a GET request or anything like that to the Govee servers. It just controls the devices. Um, of course, you can also do the local API and all that, but there's a lot of time that's put into Home Assistant, a lot of effort. If you just want to do cool lights and a couple of tricks and just have basic stuff, just stick with the Amazon stuff. It's pretty simple. You can do a lot of cool stuff. You're just very limited in what you can do. That's a lot for an old guy like me. Yeah, that's why I have a consulting business because it's a lot for just even regular people. People want to do this stuff, but they don't have the time, or just because this is what I do day in and day out. They don't have the knowledge, and it's a lot once you start getting into Home Assistant. Um, it is a time sink. It is frustrating. I can't count how many times something broke. A great example. I have that new garage door opener after my queue did the stupid crap of, oh, we're not letting third parties use our stuff anymore. Oh yeah, what Tim said. Haven't even gotten to the YAML yet. So YAML coding, some things you just can't do in this format. You have to um, script. I'll show you what YAML looks like because you can actually just switch everything to YAML, and it's this. I just gave my device ID away. Oh well, I'll edit it out. But you have to be here to get my device ID. Anyway, we'll close that. So wrap things up. I mean, yes, Home Assistant's complicated. It takes time. It takes learning, but it is worth it. You can do all kinds of crazy stuff with it. My top five smart home automations video has it's all done through Home Assistant. Being able to just simply put my favorite automation of all time still is putting my phone on the charger. It locks all my doors. It sets my alarm. It turns off all my lights. Is all done through Home Assistant. I don't think I could get it done in Smartthings or Amazon routines the way I can get it done in Home Assistant. If you don't want to put the time, effort, and you're okay with missing out on all these crazy advanced features, Smartthings is a great platform. You get the hub, like their actual like V3 hub with the Z Wave and Zigbee antennas in it because that opens up a lot more devices to you. You're not just stuck um, in a certain thing. So Black Diamond, I looked at more into Govee, and they have also like Wi-Fi contact sensors, Wi-Fi motion sensors. The unfortunate thing about Govee is, as much as I love them, they don't like to play nice with other systems. I think it's because they're a small company and they don't want the load on the server. But um, like I can't get a Govee Wi-Fi motion sensor to work in Smartthings. I can get it to work in Amazon. So there's if you wanted to stick with the Amazon routines and stuff like that, or just in Govee itself, then that would be an option. But you're gonna miss out on a couple of things. Um, but yeah, I recommend Smartthings to anybody that wants advanced stuff but doesn't want to put in the hours um, it takes to get Home Assistant up and running and doing all the crazy stuff that it can do. Um, but if you've got the time and you are really passionate about it, I always recommend Home Assistant. It's a hobby. It's not just something you do. It like all hobbies, you put time into it, and it pays off in the end. It's like I said, you can do all the crazy stuff. So I thought I was going to be able to do all this in 30 minutes. I was going to cut it a little bit short. So I'm not going to always keep it to an hour. Some streams might just be 30 minutes. It just depends on how long I talk about the subject. It will be Sundays from 8 to 9 tentatively. It just, like I said, depends. If I have special guests, it might run longer. especially during depending on where they're from. There's a couple of guys in the UK. I might actually have to schedule it earlier, but I will give you guys a week in advance. I won't spring it on you the day of. Um, I don't think I haven't heard from Ryan from Tech Smart Home in a while, so I don't know what's going on there. I'm just gonna let him deal with his stuff, and if he gets back to me or not, it is what it is. I'll continue doing solo until I have other guests on. Um, and I'm gonna at the beginning of the week, so tomorrow I'm gonna make a post on the YouTube channel, basically like I've been doing. I'll put three different things. Hey, what do you want me to talk about this week? And you guys pick, and I'll discuss it. So now I'm gonna leave the floor open for questions. We got 8 minutes left, so if you got questions about anything we covered, let me know now. Thoughts on making a ceiling fan smart that isn't smart? Devices, add-ons. So you can do one of two things depending on your current ceiling fan. Does it have a remote, like an IR or RF remote that you can turn it on or off? If not, well, if it does, and you can, the easy way of doing it is getting an like a Broadlink RM Pro, where it can copy whatever your remote does, and it then can send the signal back and forth. If it doesn't have a remote, if it's not even a remote control one, it's just a light switch, then you replace light switches with a smart switch. If that's what you're trying to do, that's what I've done to all my fans. Like the one in my office is just a Z-Wave smart switch that I put in the wall. It has a remote. So yeah, the easiest way is here. Maybe I can look it up for you real quick. Amazon Broad Link RM4 Pro. Yeah, so you don't necessarily have to get the $44 one. You can get the little mini remote one. Basically, you get this device and you can program it using that remote, and then it basically mimics that remote. And you can tell Amazon routines, or I think it works with Smartthings. It also works in Home Assistant that whatever trigger and it turns on the fan or off the fan. For example, in my office, a routine you can do is I have a temperature sensor in here, so whenever the temperature gets above a certain degree and it detects that I'm in here by my presence sensor, it turns on the fan. And then if I'm not here, it turns off the fan. So you can do things like that. You can get a smart switch. I don't recommend ripping out your fan and replacing it with a two, three, $400 smart fan because there are cheaper ways of doing it. There are kits that you can make them smart if you really want to do that. You can use like an Akara relay inside the fan itself, but the Broadlink RM4 Pro or RM4 Mini or any basically IR or RF blaster would work. There's a bunch of them out there, but Broadlink's the best one, the best brand that I know of. Or you can do a smart switch if you're comfortable with installing a switch or have an electrician to do it for you. Um, it's probably the best way of actually doing it. I mean, the RM Pro, because the switch can give you a state. It can tell you if it's turned on or off. The RM4 Pro, the IR blaster, just sends the signal. It doesn't have a state. It doesn't tell you if the fan's on or off. So you would have to basically guess if you're not at home and can't physically see the fan. Smart switch is the best way, but it takes more work. Um, the RM4 Pro is the easier way. Yeah. Well, there's a lot of smart switches out there. They're like $20. They're Wi-Fi. Govee has them. So it's more work to put a smart switch in than it is the RM4 Pro. All right. Any more questions? I've thought about doing everything other than installing smart switches because I absolutely hate doing it. I'm not an electrician, but I don't want to. I'm kind of one of those people that don't like to hire somebody to do something. I'll just figure out how to do it myself. And it's always a pain in the butt because you open up a light, you never know what you're gonna see in a the junction box. Sometimes you'll open it up and you'll see just the two wires and a neutral wire and a ground wire, exactly what you want to see. Sometimes you'll open it up and you'll see like two lines, two loads, all tied together in some conjunction thing, a bunch of ground wires all spun up together, pushed in the back, and a bunch of neutral wires. Like I think I have one that has like six twisted, and I was like, I'm not touching it. And you don't want to mess with it because then you gotta get like splice them down and use wire nuts. And the junction box isn't big. Most smart switches take up a lot of space, and you have to shove all that wiring in there. I've literally had problems with. I'd get the switch wired up. I would test it. It would come on. It would control whatever I wanted to. And then I'd go cut the breaker and then push it into the box. And through the process, because there's so many different wires and so many stupid wire nuts and this stuff, something gets pulled out of somewhere and it doesn't work. And I've had to. It's installing smart switches is always a pain in the butt if you had a bunch of idiots that wired your house. And I had a bunch of idiots wire my house. So not by choice. I bought the house years after it was built. So, but yeah. Well, that is it for tonight. I will see you guys next week. I will be working on my latest actual video pretty soon. I want to try, if I'm not too busy, try to get it out next week. The problem is this is an hour of my time. It's a lot easier, and it's just me. It's a little bit more, not stressful is the word, but I guess I have to fill an hour of time just me talking on the fly. So it's unscripted. Whereas the videos take a lot of time. I write the scripts. I do several hours of footage because you don't want to mess up when you have the chance to edit it out, and then several hours of editing. So it's a lot more work to do that. But I will be working on the next one. If you guys are interested, I think I'm doing it on Akara as a company as a whole. I mean, you can. A lot of YouTubers do product reviews. So like individual devices, like you always see the T1 Pro Cube review. I don't feel like that's necessary for me to do because you can find 50 videos on one product. If it's a product I really love and I want to do a review, so I'll probably do one on the S7 Roborock that I've got. But I don't do those too often. I like to do reviews of companies themselves because, as I always say, you buy their products, you're inviting them into your home because if it's connected to the internet, it's connected to their server. So I'll be doing it on a car next. Hopefully, it'll come out next weekend, if not the weekend after that. Just depends on how my schedule goes. But anyway, thanks everyone for watching, and I hope you learned something from this. If you did, like it and subscribe to the channel if you're not already. I'm pretty sure all of you are subscribed though. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. And if you think anybody could probably what's the word I'm looking for? Get anything out of this themselves, somebody invite them to watch again every Sunday from 8 to 9, tentatively. The 8 is a hard. I'm always gonna start at 8, but it might not run to 9 or it might run over it depending on what goes on. But anyway, it is 9 o'clock, so I'm gonna let you guys go. I will see you next week.